life's never handed me anything on a silver platter. My name's Anna, and by the time I was 6, both my folks had passed, leaving me in the care of my grandma. She was tough as nails, but with a heart of gold. We didn't have much, but she made damn sure I never felt wanting for love. Education? Well, that was a luxury we couldn't afford. I learned to read and write, but school was a dream that ended when I had to start working to help out. I ended up waitressing at a diner downtown, a place where the tips were as meager as the hopes of ever getting out of there. But it paid the bills, or at least some of them, and it kept me on my feet. That's where I met James. He walked in one rainy afternoon, all drenched and looking like something out of a magazine with his fancy suit and that lost look on his face. "Can I get a coffee, black, and maybe a slice of your best pie?" he asked, shaking off the rain. "Sure thing, coming right up," I replied, trying not to show how his smile made my heart skip a beat. James was from a different world, one where people didn't worry about their next meal or whether they could afford the rent. We got to talking, him with his curious questions about my life, and me, well, I was just being my straight-up self. "So, what's a guy like you doing in a dive like this?" I couldn't help but ask. "Just passing through, looking for a bit of real life, I guess." He chuckled, that smile never leaving his face. "Real life, huh? Spend a day in my shoes, you'll get more real life than you bargained for," I joked back, not really expecting him to understand. But he surprised me. He kept coming back, not just for the coffee but for the conversations. We talked about everything and nothing, and somewhere along the line, I started to fall for him. Hard. James introduced me to his world, one I never knew existed. Fancy dinners, parties where people talked about things I barely understood, and yet, he never made me feel out of place. He was different, kind, and genuinely interested in me, not just my story. Then there was Eleanor, James's mother. The first time I met her, I knew she was sizing me up, her eyes sharp, missing nothing. "So, you're the girl who's caught my son's attention," she said, her voice cool, her gaze even colder. "Yeah, guess I am," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Well," was all she said, turning her attention back to James as if I was no longer there. It was clear from the get-go she didn't approve of me. I was too simple, too uneducated, too everything she didn't want for her son. Eleanor's disdain wasn't the silent type. It was loud, clear, and made its presence felt every single time she walked into a room. If there was one thing I learned quickly after marrying James, it was that his mother, Eleanor, had an opinion on everything. And she wasn't shy about letting you know exactly what she thought, especially if it involved me. Living under the shadow of her disdain was like walking on eggshells, only the eggshells were made of glass, and I was barefoot. Every dinner, every family gathering, she had a way of making her disapproval known, her words sharp enough to cut through the thickest skin. One evening, James and I invited her over for dinner, a simple affair. I had spent the day cooking, trying to make everything perfect, hoping, foolishly, maybe, that I could win her over with my culinary skills. The moment she stepped through the door, I knew it was going to be a long night. "Oh, you decided to cook, Anna? How quaint," she remarked, her voice dripping with condescension as she glanced around our modest living room. "Yeah, thought we'd have a nice family dinner." "Sit down, make yourself comfortable," I replied, forcing a smile, trying to keep the peace for James's sake. James, bless him, tried to smooth things over. "Mom, Anna's been working hard on this meal. Let's just enjoy the evening, okay?" Dinner was a battlefield. With every dish I served, Eleanor had a comment. "This is interesting, Anna. Not what I would have chosen, but I suppose it's edible." I clenched my jaw, counting to 10 in my head. "Glad you think so. Tried something new tonight." James shot me a sympathetic look, his way of saying, "Just ignore her." But ignoring Eleanor was like trying to ignore a hurricane in your living room. The real kicker came when we were talking about Lily's upcoming school year. "I've been looking into schools for Lily," Eleanor began, her tone suggesting she had already made decisions. The local public school simply won't do. A girl of her potential needs the best education we can provide. I felt my hackles rise. James and I have been discussing schools. We think the local school is just fine. Eleanor turned her sharp gaze on me. Anna, with all due respect, what do you know about education? Your background doesn't exactly scream expertise in the matter. That stung. I could feel James tense up beside me, but before he could say anything, I jumped in. My background might not be fancy, Eleanor, but I know plenty about making the best out of what you've got. Lily will be fine. The rest of the evening passed in tense silence. After Eleanor left, James tried to apologize. Anna, I'm sorry. She's just set in her ways? Yeah, I've noticed, I interrupted, not wanting to hear excuses for her behavior. It wasn't just the dinners or the snide remarks about my cooking or our home. It was the way she treated me, like I was an inconvenience, a mistake her son had made. But I wasn't about to let her walk all over me. I had faced tougher things in my life than Eleanor's disdain. What bothered me most was the way she talked about Lily, as if I had no say in my daughter's upbringing. The thought of her undermining me with Lily, teaching her to look down on where she came from, made my blood boil. James was caught in the middle, I knew that. He loved his mother, but he loved me and Lily too. We'll figure this out, Anna. I promise, he said, pulling me into a hug. Eleanor's idea of music lessons for Lily felt more like a military operation than anything resembling fun. She'd march into our home, piano books in hand, a stern look on her face that would make a drill sergeant proud. Lily, bless her heart, tried to look excited, but I could see the dread in her eyes. It broke my heart. One afternoon, after another one of these so-called lessons, Lily came to me, her little face scrunched up in distress. Mommy, do I have to keep doing piano with Grandma? She gets mad when I mess up. It's not fun. I knelt down, pulling her into a hug. Hey, it's okay. You don't have to do anything that makes you unhappy. Let me talk to Grandma, okay? Lily nodded, wiping away a tear. It was the last straw. I decided it was time for a showdown with Eleanor. That evening, when Eleanor was about to leave, I stopped her at the door. Eleanor, we need to talk about these music lessons, I said, my voice steady but firm. Oh? What about them? She replied, her tone icy, as if she already knew where this was going. Lily's not happy. She's stressed and upset after every lesson. I thought these were supposed to be fun for her. Eleanor scoffed. Fun? Music isn't about fun, Anna. It's about discipline, about learning to appreciate the finer things in life. Something you'd know nothing about. I felt my cheeks flush with anger. Listen, I appreciate you wanting to teach Lily, but not like this. Not at the cost of her happiness. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. And what do you suggest? Letting her quit. That's the problem with your generation. Too quick to give up. No wonder you ended up where you are. That stung. More than I wanted to admit. It's not about giving up. It's about not forcing her to do something she hates. There's a difference. Eleanor shook her head, dismissive. I won't stand by and watch my granddaughter waste her potential. If you're not interested in her future, I certainly am. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat down with James. We need to talk about Eleanor and these piano lessons, I started, trying to keep my voice even. James looked up, his expression wary. What about them? Lily's miserable, James. She's scared of making mistakes because your mom's too hard on her. She's losing her love for music. James sighed, running a hand through his hair. Mom just wants what's best for Lily. You know how she is with perfection. I felt my frustration rise. But at what cost? Our daughter's happiness? There was a long silence before James spoke again. I'll talk to Mom. But Anna, you know how she is. She's set in her ways. Maybe we just give it a bit more time? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. More time? James, our daughter is unhappy. He didn't meet my gaze. I know, but Mom's heart is in the right place. Let's not make a big deal out of this, okay? We'll work it out. Just give it some time. The conversation ended there, but the issue didn't. James did talk to Eleanor, or so he said, but nothing changed. If anything, the lessons became more frequent, as if Eleanor was doubling down in the face of my concerns. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate music, it was the way Eleanor lorded over Lily, pressing her own brand of perfection onto her, that rubbed me the wrong way. But Lily was a trooper, and somehow, she managed to find joy in the keys, despite her grandmother's heavy-handed teachings. As our wedding anniversary approached, James and I decided to throw a party. Nothing too fancy, just a gathering of close friends and family to celebrate another year of us. The planning was going smoothly until Eleanor threw us a curveball. I've arranged for a special performance, she announced one evening, her tone leaving no room for argument. Lily and I will be playing a duet. You'll need to rent a stage and a piano. James and I exchanged a look. A piano? He echoed, clearly taken aback. Yes, James. And make sure it's a grand piano. We'll be playing arpeggios, something Anna here might not be familiar with, Eleanor said, her voice dripping with that familiar condescension. I felt my cheeks burn, not from embarrassment, but from anger. The nerve of her, to assume I didn't know what arpeggios were. My grandmother had made sure I was as comfortable with Bach and Beethoven as I was with a frying pan and spatula. But I'd kept my musical skills a secret, a piece of me that I cherished privately, away from judgmental eyes. Not even James knew. But I swallowed my pride and bit back the sharp retort on the tip of my tongue. This wasn't about me or Eleanor. This was about Lily, and if playing this duet made her happy, then I'd move heaven and earth to make it happen. Sure, Eleanor. We'll make sure there's a stage and a piano, I said, my voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside me. Eleanor looked satisfied, her smile sharp as a knife. Good. It'll be educational for you, Anna. A chance to see what real music sounds like. I forced a smile, imagining the look on her face if I sat down at that piano and let loose with a Chopin nocturne or a Debussy prelude. But this wasn't the time for showing off. This was about giving Lily a moment in the spotlight, away from the shadow of her grandmother's expectations. James, bless him, was clueless about the tension. It'll be great, babe. Lily's excited about it, he said later, wrapping an arm around me. I nodded, leaning into his embrace. Yeah, it'll be something all right. As the day of the party drew closer, I found myself feeling more anxious than excited. Not about the party itself, but about that performance. It was a reminder of how much I'd kept hidden from my own family, and of the delicate balance we maintained to keep the peace. The party was in full swing, laughter and chatter filling our backyard, transformed for the night into a slice of celebration. James was mingling, playing the host with an easy charm that made me fall for him all over again every time I saw it. Lily, dolled up in a dress that sparkled under the fairy lights, was buzzing with excitement and nerves about her upcoming performance. I was fussing over the last-minute details when Eleanor made her grand entrance, draped in elegance but with that ever-present air of scrutiny. Anna, dear, is everything set for our performance? She asked, her eyes darting around, assessing everything with a critical eye. Yep, all set. The piano's tuned, and the stage is waiting, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Inside, my stomach was a bundle of knots. This whole setup was Eleanor's show, but it was Lily I was worried about. As guests settled, Eleanor decided it was time. Let's not keep our audience waiting, she announced, herding a reluctant Lily towards the stage. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. As Eleanor stepped onto the stage, her heel caught on a loose cable. Time slowed as she stumbled, a gasp escaping from the crowd. Instinctively, she reached out, trying to steady herself on the piano, but instead, she tumbled, landing awkwardly on her arm. The music halted, replaced by murmurs of concern. James rushed to his mother's side, his face etched with worry. "Mom, are you all right?" he asked, as I hovered nearby, unsure of what to do. Eleanor, ever the prideful matriarch, brushed off the concern with a strained smile. "I'm fine, just a little mishap." "The show must go on," she insisted, though her voice betrayed a hint of pain. James wasn't convinced. "Maybe we should cancel the performance, Mom. You need to get that checked." But Eleanor wouldn't hear of it. "Absolutely not. We've prepared for this, and we will perform," she said, her tone brooking no argument. I glanced at Lily, who looked more frightened than ever. I wanted to scoop her up and tell her she didn't have to go through with this, but Eleanor was already positioning her at the piano. The performance started, and it was clear from the first note that something was off. Eleanor's playing was hesitant, the fluid grace she usually possessed replaced by a stilted awkwardness. The pain from her fall was evident in every note she missed, every chord that came out wrong. A murmur ran through the assembled guests as the performance went on. It wasn't long before some couldn't hide their amusement, their whispers turning into barely suppressed chuckles. The sight of Eleanor, always so poised and in control, struggling to play basic arpeggios because of her injured arm was, I had to admit, a bit funny in a tragic sort of way. But my heart went out to Lily, caught in the middle of this farce, her eyes darting between the keys and her grandmother, a look of sheer panic on her face. The performance, meant to be the highlight of the evening, turned into a comedy of errors, with Eleanor's pride leading the charge. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sympathy for her. There she was, trying to maintain her dignity in front of an audience that found her predicament amusing. It was a humbling moment for someone who seldom found themselves anything less than perfect. As I watched Eleanor stumble away from the piano, her pride taking a hit right in front of everyone, I was torn. Part of me thought, well, it's about time she came down a peg or two. But then, seeing her trying to blink away those tears of frustration, my heart softened. She might be all sorts of difficult, but she didn't deserve to be humiliated like that. And Lily, my sweet girl, looked so upset by the whole ordeal, I couldn't bear it. Eleanor, her face a mask of disappointment mixed with pain, slowly moved aside. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't about to let the evening end on such a sour note. Not if I could help it. So, there I went, taking a seat at the piano beside Lily, who looked at me with wide, questioning eyes. "Just follow my lead," I whispered to her, giving her a reassuring smile. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, curious, maybe even a bit skeptical. We started to play, and it was like magic. The notes just flowed, perfect and clear. For a few minutes, there was no Eleanor, no awkward tension, just me, Lily, and the music. I could hear the surprise in the room, the shift in the atmosphere as we hit our stride. The applause that followed was thunderous, especially from James, who looked like he might burst with pride. But it was Eleanor's reaction that caught me off guard. She was standing there, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were different. There was something like respect, maybe even a hint of regret, in her eyes. I had no idea you could play," she said, her voice soft, almost lost in the buzz of the room. "A lot of things you don't know about me," I shot back, half teasing, half serious. It was a moment of triumph, sure, but it was also a bridge, a way to show her there was more to me than she'd ever given me credit for. Lily, ever the showman, took her little bow, her face lit up with a mix of relief and joy. And as the applause died down, I stayed seated at the piano, my fingers resting lightly on the keys, ready for the next piece. "Wow, Anna, that was incredible." "I had no idea," James said, his voice filled with wonder and something akin to disbelief. Eleanor cleared her throat, stepping closer, her gaze fixed on me. "Anna, I must admit, that was quite a performance. You and Lily, you played beautifully together." I raised an eyebrow, surprised by her concession. "Thanks, Eleanor. Music's always been a big part of my life. Just never had the chance to show it off like this." The guests murmured their agreement, some still clapping softly, their smiles genuine and encouraging. It was a rare moment of unity, the usual tensions forgotten in the wake of our shared experience. Lily tugged at my sleeve, her earlier shyness replaced by excitement. "Mom, can we play another one? Please?" I looked down at her, her enthusiasm infectious. "Sure, kiddo. What do you say we give them a little Beethoven?" The mention of Beethoven caught Eleanor off guard, her interest piqued. "Beethoven, you say? I didn't realize you were familiar with his work." "There's a lot of things about me you're not familiar with," I shot back, not unkindly. I turned to the guests, who were watching our exchange with a mix of amusement and curiosity. "Everyone, we hope you enjoy this next piece. It's one of our favorites." As Lily and I launched into the first few bars of Für Elise, a piece so familiar yet always capable of evoking deep emotions, the room settled into a hushed reverence. The music flowed from us, a testament to hours of practice and a shared love for the piano that I hadn't realized was so strong in my daughter. When the piece ended, the applause was louder, more assured. It was as if our performance had woven a thread of connection through everyone present, drawing us together in appreciation of something truly special. James came over, his pride evident. "I think we might need to get a second piano at this rate," he joked, but I could tell he was seriously considering it. Eleanor approached again, this time her expression softer, more reflective. "Anna, I was wrong about you. Your love for music, for our family, it's clear. I'm sorry for any harsh words I've said." I was taken aback by her apology, the sincerity in her voice unmistakable. "Thank you, Eleanor. That means a lot coming from you. Maybe we can start fresh?" She nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I'd like that. Very much." The rest of the evening was a blur of laughter, conversation, and even more music. Lily and I played a few more pieces, each one drawing cheers and applause from our guests. It felt like a turning point, a bridge mended through the power of music and a shared moment of vulnerability. It's been a while since that unforgettable night when music changed everything between me and Eleanor, my once daunting mother-in-law. If someone had told me back then that we'd end up close, I would have laughed it off. But here we are, and I can hardly believe it myself. Eleanor softened a lot, especially when it comes to Lily's upbringing. She's not as rigid as she used to be, and I see a warmth in her I never knew existed. These days, we often find ourselves sitting side by side at the piano, our fingers dancing over the keys in perfect harmony. It's become our thing, playing together during family get-togethers or quiet evenings at home. Who would have thought? One evening, as we finished a particularly challenging piece, I turned to Eleanor, unable to hide my grin. "Not bad for two amateurs, huh?" Eleanor actually chuckled, a sound so rare and precious it still caught me off guard. "Speak for yourself, Anna. I've always been a virtuoso in my own mind." Lily, who'd been listening, piped up from where she sat, a stack of music sheets in her lap. "Grandma, you're the best teacher. But Mom's catching up." Eleanor's gaze softened as she looked at Lily, then back at me. "We make a good team, don't we?" "Yeah, we do," I agreed, feeling a surge of pride. Not just in our music, but in how far we'd come, from cautious adversaries to partners in crime at the piano. James, ever the supportive husband and son, would often sit back with a contented smile, watching us. "You three are something else," he'd say, and I knew he meant every word. Eleanor and we talk a lot more now. Not just about music, but about life, love, and everything in between. She's opened up about the challenges of raising her kids alone, and I've shared my fears and dreams for Lily. These conversations, once unimaginable, have become a cherished part of our relationship. "Anna," Eleanor said one night, after Lily had gone to bed, "I was too harsh on you before. You brought something special into this family." Hearing those words, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. "Thank you, Eleanor. That means the world to me. We've come a long way, Eleanor and I." From tension and misunderstanding to respect and genuine affection. It's not always perfect, but the progress we've made is undeniable. And much of it, we owe to those evenings at the piano, where, through the universal language of music, we found a way to understand each other.